기사부대! Hop on the beat!
The Steel Ball Run race serves as the main framing device of Part 7 of JoJo. While a lot of the part is focused on the race, and many major characters are racers in it, it usually just plays out in the background while the main conflict happens in between its big moments. We only get to meet a small amount of the thousands of participants, which always left me wondering about many of the minor characters we only briefly meet along the way. So I wanted to just take the time to go over every racer that appears throughout the story. Now obviously this video will contain spoilers for all of Steel Ball Run, so be aware of that before watching. Initially I thought about covering the racers in order of appearance, but if I did it like that, all the important characters would be at the beginning and the video would just end talking about the faceless ones. So I decided I'll be going in order of elimination and overall placement, meaning we'll start with the person in last place overall and end with the winner of the race. And as we go, I'll explain the different stages of the race, and most importantly, take a look at how well each person did. How well a person does in the race is mainly determined by their points. Points are earned with the completion of each stage of the race, with first place getting 100 points and it decreasing with each placement. The person who crosses the finish line with the highest total points is the winner of the grand prize of the race, even if they aren't actually the first to finish. This means having a good performance across the entire race actually matters a lot to winning. The first stage of the Steel Ball Run happened on September 25, 1890 at San Diego Beach in California. This is the second shortest stage in the race, taking a path of 15,000 meters until reaching the Church of Santa Maria Novella. The total number of racers to enter was 3,852. During the first stage, we also have our first elimination and the first racer I'll be talking about. Avdol was a racer hailing from Egypt, most well known for riding a camel instead of a horse. He is of course named after Muhammad Avdol from Part 3 and uses a very similar design as well. Avdol was considered a champion candidate and was expected to be a top runner in the race. He was said to be well known for crossing the Sahara Desert with his camel 3 times annually. With his camel's long legs and large size, he was able to travel at high speeds while also having the mass to crash into and eliminate other racers. Within the first 1,000 meters, Avdol targeted Gyro Zeppeli, trying to knock him off his horse. However, Gyro was able to use a reflection created by shockwaves of his steel balls to find a nearby cluster of cacti and lured Avdol into it. This caused Avdol and his camel to topple over, making him one of the first to be eliminated from the race, finishing with 0 points. Our next elimination was also in the first stage, the racer Baron Rukatugo from Germany. The Baron was most notable for entering the race with an automobile, which he believed would be faster than a horse. The race organizer, Stephen Steele, accepted this to prove that the age of the horse was not yet over. The Baron's automobile broke down partway into the first stage. He decided that it was impossible to finish the race due to his machine's heavy fuel consumption and returned to his home country, finishing with 0 points. Next we come to the first casualties of the race. These are Mark Becker, David Hagen, and Paul Lukather. They are respectively named after Walter Becker from the band Steely Dan, Donald Fagen from Steely Dan, and Steve Lukather from Toto. The 3 of them were murdered by their fellow racers, the 3 members of the Boom Boom family. They were said to be riding in about 2,000th place before falling off their horses. Their bodies were found after the first stage with their intestines pulled out by Tomb of the Boom's ability. Despite the local sheriff's warning, Stephen Steele decided not to postpone the race after this since it had already begun. Since the 3 of them did not finish the first stage, they each finished with 0 points. In the first stage, of the 3,852 entrants, a total of 79 were retired and 3 were killed. Now we come to the second stage of the race. Compared to the first one, this is longer and much more dangerous, spanning 1,200 kilometers across the Arizona desert and ending in Monument Valley. Due to the desert's dangerous conditions, wagons with medics and referees were available some distance behind the race in case of emergencies, but competitors would be retired from the race if they had to request help. The first person to be eliminated in the second stage was Mrs. Robinson, a racer hailing from Mexico. He and his horse, El Condor Pasa, are both named after songs from the duo Simon and Garfunkel. Mrs. Robinson followed Johnny Joestar and Gyro into the desert, planning to kill and eliminate them. He heavily modified his body to act as an insect nest, keeping them in hollowed out parts of his body, including his left eye socket. He sent out some flies to trigger a nearby cholla cactus to shoot at them with its needles. Gyro was able to send vibrations toward Mrs. Robinson, making the nearby cacti explode and incapacitate him. He was later found lying on the ground by Mountain Tim, who determined that he was not the murderer from the first stage. Mrs. Robinson finished 18th in the first stage and was placed 18th overall before being eliminated in the second, giving him a total of 4 points. Next we have the members of the Boom Boom family, the father, Benjamin Boom Boom, and his 2 sons, Andre and L.A. All 3 of them are named after Andre Lauren Benjamin, better known as Andre 3000, one half of the hip-hop duo Outkast. They each have access to a shared stand named Tomb of the Boom, also named after an Outkast song. Their 3 horses, Crosstown Traffic, Foxy Lady, and Little Wing, are all named after Jimi Hendrix songs. The family entered the race aiming to claim 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place to maximize their winnings. They used their magnetic stand powers to murder 3 racers during the first stage, and then pursued Gyro Zeppeli during the second stage, to claim the bounty placed on him by Oyakomova. They battled Johnny and Gyro as well as Mountain Tim within a Devil's Palm, where Johnny unknowingly received the left arm of the Saint's corpse. Benjamin was shot with one of Johnny's nail bullets and killed. Andre, who had been injured earlier by Gyro, started to fall unconscious from blood loss. L.A. had his toes sliced off by Johnny, allowing them to escape. They were left behind in the desert, and according to Mountain Tim, they will die from lack of water before the rescue crews can find them. Benjamin, Andre, and L.A. finished in 9th, 10th, and 11th place in the first stage, and were all eliminated in the second, giving them each 13, 12, and 11 points for a combined total of 36. Our next racer is Oyakomova, who comes from the Kingdom of Naples. He is named after a song by Santana. Oyakomova is a terrorist that operated within the Kingdom of Naples. He is well known for his skill with explosives, having previously attempted to assassinate the king by blowing up his carriage. He escaped prison and fled to America, where he began working for President Funny Valentine. After entering the Devil's Palm, he gained a stand, Boku no Rhythm wo Kitekure, which allows him to insert bombs into objects in the form of small pins. He placed a $200,000 bounty on Gyro as revenge and eventually found him at the checkpoint town during the second stage. Using his ability, he severely wounded Mountain Tim and entered a long chase with Johnny and Gyro. He was eventually defeated by being hit in the face with 2 of Gyro's steel balls. Oyakomova's placement in the first stage is unknown, but he placed low enough to receive no points. He was eliminated in the second stage, giving him a total of 0 points. Our next racer is Mountain Tim, hailing from the state of Wyoming. He is most likely named after Mountain Jam, a song by the Allman Brothers Band. Tim is a talented cowboy and bounty hunter and was said to be one of the leading contenders in the race. At age 16, he encountered a Devil's Palm and received a stand, Oh Lonesome Me, giving him the ability to transfer parts of his body across rope. During the first stage, Tim crosses the finish line in 5th place and is later moved to 4th place after Gyro is demoted. He participated in the investigation to find the murderer during the first stage and used his position as a strong contender in the race to lure them out. He later encountered Oyakomova at the checkpoint town and was injured by an explosion, causing him to drop out of the race and focus on assisting the sheriff. He was later called by Lucy while she was cornered by Valentine's agents in Kansas City. He used his ability to help her escape and told her to find Johnny and Gyro if she's in trouble. Soon after, he was confronted by Blackmore and was killed with a bullet to the head. Despite being one of the most promising racers, Tim's performance was unfortunately cut short. After placing 4th in the first stage and dropping out in the second, he ended up with a total of 35 points. At the time that he dropped out, Tim was ranked 7th overall in the race. Finally, for the second stage, we have Fritz von Stroheim from the country of Germany. He is heavily modeled after the character Rudolf von Stroheim from Part 2. His horse, Europe Express, is named after the Kraftwerk song Trans-Europe Express. He is most notable for having heavy cybernetic alterations to his body, giving him a monocle on his right eye and a gun mounted inside of his right arm. He confronted Johnny and Gyro during the second stage and attempted to kill them about 25 kilometers away from their goal. Gyro defeated him by hitting him with a barrage of rocks that were carved by his steel ball. He was presumed to be an agent working for Valentine who believed Gyro was in possession of a corpse part. Stroheim placed 7th during the first stage and was eliminated in the second, giving him a total of 20 points. The second stage of the race turned out to be one of the most costly of the entire journey. Starting with 3,770 racers, the difficult trek through the desert caused 1,219 of them to retire, and resulted in the unmatched death toll of 82. 523 of the retirees dropped out due to interference from the Devil's Palm. The third stage spanned 510 kilometers from Monument Valley through the Rocky Mountains and ending in Canyon City in Colorado. Out of the remaining 2,469 racers, a total of 551 retired in this stage. However, none of them were actually shown in the story, so we'll be skipping over this stage. The fourth stage started from Canyon City and spanned 1,250 kilometers through the Great Plains to Kansas City, Missouri. This brings us to our next racer, Gaucho from Mexico. He and his horse Peg are both named after songs by Steely Dan. He was mostly a background character until making his first and only major appearance during Chapter 33. During the fourth stage, he was trapped within the orchard surrounding Ringo's cabin due to the time-reversing power of his stand mandem. He met Gyro, Johnny, and Hot Pants and discovered that they were trapped there as well. He eventually grew frustrated and confronted Ringo and was shot and killed by him during a duel. Ringo later buried his body outside the cabin. Gaucho was a major contender during the early stages of the race. He placed 17th in the first stage, earning 5 points. In the second stage, he placed somewhere outside of the point range. In the third stage, he placed 10th, earning 12 points. In the fourth stage, he was eliminated, finishing with a total of 17 points and ranked 14th overall. The fourth stage finished with 1 death, and of the 1,918 racers remaining, 1,476 of them retired, the highest of any stage in the race. The fifth stage ran from Kansas City across the Mississippi River and to Chicago, spanning 780 kilometers. Our next racer is Dot Han, hailing from Mongolia. He is purported to be a descendant of Genghis Khan and is a renowned equestrian master. He is listed as one of the favored candidates before the start of the race. His horse is named Number 1 after a song by the American rapper Nelly. During the fifth stage, he was targeted by a combination of abilities from Diego's Scary Monsters and Sandman's Stand in a Silent Way. He was covered in sound bombs as a trap to attack Johnny and Gyro. As Dot Han rode towards the two, they thought he was an attacker and fired at him, but found that their attacks were ineffective. By digging a hole in the ground, Johnny and Gyro avoided him along with the cabin collapsing on top of them. He and his horse collided with the cabin, tearing them apart and killing them. Dot Han was one of the most consistent racers of the early stages, and his performance gradually improved throughout the race. He placed 16th in the first stage, earning 6 points, 8th in the second stage for 15 points, 7th in the third stage for 20 points, and 5th in the fourth stage for 30 points. He was eliminated in the fifth stage, finishing with a total of 71 points while ranked 8th overall. Next is Sandman, a Native American racer. His name is likely based on either the song Sandman by America or Enter Sandman by Metallica. Sandman's real name is Soundman, with the name Sandman actually being a bastardization by the white settlers of the area. In his people's language, he is known as He Who Creates Sound, which lines up with his stand ability In a Silent Way, named after an album by Miles Davis. With his stand, he is able to create constructs out of sounds that carry those sounds' effects. Sandman is most notable for running the race completely on foot. Using an advanced running technique, Sandman is able to run close to the speed of a horse while also having a great advantage over uneven terrain. Sandman chose to enter the race to earn the grand prize and buy back his people's land. Sandman shocked everyone in the first stage by being one of the front runners despite his lack of a horse. During the stage, an incident occurred when Gyro threw a steel ball at a nearby rock to interfere with Poco Loco. At that moment, Sandman had stepped on the rock, nearly making him fall. Sandman came in second place in the first stage behind Gyro, however for disrupting the race, Gyro was penalized and lowered 20 places, putting Sandman in first place and earning him 100 points, an additional $10,000, and a 1-hour time bonus. Sandman continued to perform well, landing third place in the second stage and sixth place in the third and fourth stages. After this, Sandman entered the services of President Valentine and planned to use the money from stealing Johnny and Gyro's corpse parts to buy back his land instead of winning the race. He used his ability to turn the racer Dot Han into a weapon against Johnny and Gyro, resulting in his death. He later stabbed Norsuke Higashikata during his battle with Johnny. Thanks to reaching a new understanding of spin, Johnny's stand evolved to Tuskak 2, allowing him to defeat and kill Sandman, who dies with no regrets. If Sandman had continued running the race, he very well may have been the winner. He had a very strong start and a consistent performance throughout the competition. Sandman took first place in the first stage, earning 100 points, third in the second stage for 40 points, and sixth in the third and fourth stages for 25 points each. He was eliminated in the fifth stage, ending with a total of 190 points. At the time of his death, he was tied in first place with Diego Brando for having the most overall points. If he had completed the race with just his total points alone, he would have ranked at least 4th in the final ranking, taking a prize of $250,000 or more. Taking Sandman's obvious skill into account, he would have surely had more points than that, and his unique status as an on-foot racer may have even played a huge role in the final stage. Unfortunately, Sandman did not complete the race, so we never got to see his future performance. Now, other than the racers who are actual characters in the story, there are also many racers that either only briefly appear or are completely faceless. Since we have the results of many of the stages, we're actually able to track the progress of many other racers who are only known by their names. These extended results pages stopped appearing after the 5th stage, so I'll go over each of these racers now in order of highest possible points. Although for these racers, we do not know where they ended up placing later on or if they were ever eliminated. The first one of these racers is Mr. He is only seen in the results of the 5th stage where he ranked 18th, which would earn him 4 points. With his other placements unknown, he may have anywhere from 4 to 19 points. The next racer is Rodder's Club. He's named after an album by Hatfield and the North. His placement is unknown for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd stages. In the 4th stage, he placed 9th, earning 13 points. Due to the lower point placements of the 3rd stage being unknown, it is possible that he placed among those as well. The rest of his performance isn't known and we never saw his total points, but he may have somewhere between 13 and 20 points. Then there's Tarkus, named after the character from Phantom Blood, who is in turn named after an album by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. His only placements that we see are getting 17th in the 2nd stage for 5 points and 16th in the 5th stage for 6 points. With his other placements unknown, he could have anywhere from 11 to 24 points. Next we have Billy White, named after the singer Barry White. His horse is Love Unlimited, named after a Barry White song. He placed 22nd in the 1st stage for 0 points, 16th in the 2nd stage for 6 points, had unknown placements for stage 3 and 4, and finally placed 14th in the 5th stage for another 8 points. With the rest of his performance unknown, he could have anywhere from 14 to 24 points total. Now we have Shigechi, named after the character from Part 4. His placement is not known for the 1st stage, but he ranked too low to receive any points. He got 14th place in the 2nd, earning him 8 points. His 3rd and 4th stage placements are unknown, and in the 5th stage he got 15th, earning 7 points. Overall, he could have anywhere from 15 to 24 points. Next up is Mac the Knife, one of the only ones of these minor racers we actually have a picture for. He is named after the song Mac the Knife, popularized by Louis Armstrong. His placement is unknown for the 1st stage, and he placed 21st in the 2nd stage, earning 1 point. The end of the 3rd stage is the only time we actually see him, where he is just ahead of Gaucho at the finish line. Here he placed 9th, earning 13 points. His 4th stage performance is unknown, and finally in the 5th stage he placed 19th for 3 more points, giving him a total of anywhere between 17 and 24 points. Then there's Kanye, named after the rapper Kanye West. He placed 13th in the 2nd and 5th stages, earning 9 points each. With his other placements unknown, he has anywhere from 18 to 24 points. Next is Iglesias, a racer from Portugal. He is named after the Spanish singer Julio Iglesias. His horse is Natalie, named after a Julio Iglesias song. He placed 23rd in the 1st stage, earning no points. He went on to place 11th in the 2nd stage for 11 points, having unknown placements in the 3rd and 4th stages, and coming in 12th for the 5th stage, earning 10 points. His performance after this is unknown, giving him a minimum of 21 points. Then we have Nightfly, named after an album by Donald Fagen. His only seen placement is in the 5th stage, where he came in 8th place, earning 15 points. It was shown that at the completion of the 5th stage that he had 25 total points, meaning he had already earned another 10 across the 3rd and 4th stages. As of his last appearance, he was ranked 14th overall in the race. The next one is Dixie Chicken, an American racer named after an album from the band Little Feat. His horse is Ramblin' Man, named after a song by the Allman Brothers Band. Dixie Chicken came in 8th place in the 1st stage for 15 points, 19th in the 2nd stage for 3 points, had unknown placements for the 3rd and 4th, and finally placed 9th in the 5th stage for another 13 points. Put together, he has 31 points minimum. With his other placements unknown, he could have anywhere up to 46 points, putting him between 9th and 12th place overall during his last mention. Lastly, for these smaller racers, we have Caravanserai from Mexico. He is named after a character first mentioned in Part 3, who is the original user of the stand Anubis. He is in turn named after an album by the band Santana. His horse Moonflower is also named after a Santana album and song. Caravanserai came in 13th place in the first stage for 9 points, 18th in the second stage for 4 points, 14th in the third stage for 8 points, 11th in the fourth stage for 11 points, and 7th in the fifth stage for 20 points, giving him 52 points altogether and placing him 8th in the race overall. His performance is very consistent, so while we don't ever see him again, I think he could be one of the 39 who actually finished the race. The fifth stage started with 441 racers, with 65 retiring and 2 deaths with Dathan and Sandman. The sixth stage begins in Chicago and travels up through the snow along Lake Michigan before crossing next to Lake Huron and arriving in Mackinac City. This brings us to our next racer, Hot Pants, originally from America but racing on behalf of the Vatican. She and her horse Gets Up are named after songs by James Brown. She possesses the stand ability Cream Starter, allowing her to absorb and manipulate flesh using a spray can. Feeling immense guilt for having sacrificed her younger brother to save herself from a bear, Hot Pants became a nun in Italy and entered the service of the Vatican in the Kingdom of Naples. She was sent to America to enter the race and secure the saint's corpse for the Catholic Church. Hot Pants had a strong performance throughout the race, first taking 6th place in the first stage to earn 25 points and then 5th in the second stage for 30 points. By surprise, she completed the third stage an hour ahead of Johnny and the others, taking first place with 100 points, $10,000, and the 1-hour time bonus. During the fourth stage, she was trapped with Johnny, Gyro, and Gaucho in Ringo's orchard and was knocked unconscious during the battle. She went on to rank 7th during the fourth stage for another 20 points. During the fifth stage, she removed the corpse's spine and arm from Johnny following his fight with Sandman. She went on to get 3rd place in the fifth stage, earning 40 more points. During the sixth stage, however, she would drop out of the race to focus on pursuing the corpse parts. She went on to assist Lucy Steele while she was disguised as the First Lady and finally teamed up with Diego to battle Valentine during the 8th stage. The completed corpse merge with Lucy's body caused Valentine to gain his Love Train ability, which caused a spatial anomaly that merged Hot Pants with nearby objects, killing her. Hot Pants was a very talented racer and had an extremely strong performance. At the time that she dropped out, she had a total of 215 points and was ranked 2nd overall behind Poco Loco. If she had gone on to the end of the race with just those points, she would have at the very least received the 4th place overall prize of $250,000 plus her $10,000 bonus from the 3rd stage. Next we have another lesser known racer, Zenyatta Mondatta from India. He's named after an album by The Police, with his horse Roxanne being named after one of their songs. He placed 12th in the first stage for 10 points, 7th in the second stage for 20 points, placed 10th in the fourth stage for 12 points, and 8th in the sixth stage for 15 points. His performance in the third stage is unknown, giving him anywhere from 57 to 66 points, with the sixth stage being the last we ever hear of him. The sixth stage had started with 374 racers remaining and ended with another 313 racers dropping out. The seventh stage was the longest of the race, starting in Mackinac City and going southwest towards Philadelphia. It spanned around 1,300 kilometers. Only 9 racers from the remaining 61 were retired here, none of which we know about. The penultimate 8th stage spans 140 kilometers from Philadelphia to Union Beach in New Jersey. At the end of this stage, the racers board boats to carry them across Raritan Bay to the final stretch. The order that the racers arrive at the finish here is the order that they start the 9th stage. The time bonuses earned from getting first place before are applied at the end of this stage, which can change their placement for the stage and allow them to gain some extra points. So we move on to our next racer and one of the main characters of the part, Gyro Zeppeli from the Kingdom of Naples. He and his family, of course, call back to the Zeppelis from the first 2 parts of JoJo, who were named after the band Led Zeppelin. His horse is Valkyrie, possibly named after Ride of the Valkyries from Richard Wagner. Gyro comes from a long line of executioners in the Kingdom of Naples and joined the race to try and secure an amnesty from the king for a little boy named Marco, who was caught up in the arrests of a revolutionary cell in the country. Gyro is a master of the technique Spin, which allows him to spin objects along the golden ratio to generate energy for various purposes, with his main use of it being to power his throwable steel ball weapons. He agreed to travel alongside Johnny Joestar and teach him how to use the spin. Gyro is one of the most talented competitors in the race and is almost always near the front of the pack. At the start of the race, he immediately took the lead and used his spin techniques to enhance his racing and defend from multiple opponents trying to pass him. He was able to cross the finish line first in the first stage, but was demoted by 20 places due to an incident where he interfered with Sandman. This puts him in 21st place, receiving only 1 point. After this, he and Johnny began traveling together and are nearby for all stages of the race. During the second stage, they fought off multiple racers that were out to eliminate them. At the end, Gyro fell behind a bit, taking 4th place for 35 points. During the third stage, Gyro gained the right eye of the corpse, giving him the ability Scan. Once again, Gyro finished 4th in the third stage after the surprise upset from Hot Pants, getting another 35 points. The fourth stage saw Gyro being trapped in the orchard with Johnny, Hot Pants, and Gaucho, ending with him defeating Ringo. Shortly after, he and Johnny would be confronted by Diego, who they would temporarily knock out of the race. They also met Lucy Steele and agreed to help her, and Gyro gave her the right eye. Gyro finished the fourth stage in 3rd place, receiving 40 points. The 5th stage includes Johnny and Gyro's fight with Sandman and Gyro teaching Johnny how to perceive the golden ratio. Here, Gyro finished in 4th and received 35 points. The 6th stage had Johnny and Gyro fight the 11 men and deal with the curse from Sugar Mountain, as well as face off with Wekapipo and Magent. At the end of this stage, Gyro finally got 1st place once again, gaining 100 points, $10,000, and a 1-hour time bonus. In the 7th stage, Johnny and Gyro fought the Stand's Civil War in Gettysburg and lost all the corpse parts to Valentine. After this, Johnny and Gyro crossed the finish line late, with Gyro coming in 6th place for 25 points. The 8th stage is where Johnny and Gyro's climactic battle with President Valentine is set. The two encounter him in Philadelphia and decide to pursue him to New Jersey after he obtains the completed corpse. During the battle with Valentine, Gyro uses his horse to perfect the golden rotation, giving him the Stand Ball Breaker, named after a song by AC/DC. Due to Valentine's dimensional barrier, his steel ball temporarily became an imperfect ellipse, causing Valentine to narrowly survive. Gyro succumbed to his injuries and fell off his horse and was shot and killed by Valentine. Gyro is by far one of the most talented jockeys in the race. His level of tactics is far above many of the other racers and often gives him just enough of an advantage to stay ahead. After his fight with Ringo, he also gained a new level of perception for the most optimal path forward. To recap, Gyro obtained a total of 271 points across the race. Like some of the other top racers before him, this puts Gyro at the very least 4th place in the final overall score with a minimum prize of $250,000, plus his $10,000 bonus. While he didn't win the race, Gyro's goal was accomplished when a revolution took place in the Kingdom of Naples and Marco was set free with the abolition of the monarchy. At an unknown time later, he would die of a cold. One more racer from the 8th stage is Baba Yaga from Russia. His name is a reference to the song The Curse of Baba Yaga by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. His horse Nutrocker is also a reference to a song from the same album. Unlike the minor racers I went over during Stage 5, Baba Yaga is part of the group of background racers that are more prominently featured and who have their own character designs. Baba Yaga finished in 14th place in the first stage for 8 points, 15th in the second stage for 7 points, 8th in the third stage for 15 points, placed low in the fourth stage for no points, placed 10th in the fifth stage for 12 points, placed 5th in the 6th stage for 30 points, and 5th again in the 7th stage for another 30 points. After the battle with Valentine, he was spotted by Johnny and Steven Steele as part of the pack of racers nearing the end. However, while riding in the dark the night earlier, his horse's legs were wounded and he was forced to retire right at the end of the 8th stage with a total of 102 points. While he didn't have an exceptionally strong start, Baba Yaga showed great improvement over the course of the race, and by the end he was a serious contender to win. Had he continued and received his points from the 8th stage, he would have most likely ranked within the top 5 of the final racers. The 8th stage started with 52 racers remaining, with 6 of them retiring, including one death with Gyro. The 9th and final stage begins by coming off the boats at Coney Island and traveling north to Manhattan. After crossing the Brooklyn Bridge, the finish line is located at Trinity Church. The final stage is also the shortest at only 13,000 meters, or about 8 miles. This brings us to our next racer and the main character of the part, Johnny Joestar. Johnny was raised in Kentucky and became a successful jockey, winning the Triple Crown 7 times. He carries deep trauma from the accidental death of his brother, who his father favored over him. Johnny continued to be successful, but became vain. Until one day when he cut in line for a play in front of a boy and had the boy thrown out. Johnny was shot in the spine by the boy and became paralyzed, finding that all his success and friends left him afterwards. Before the race, Johnny met Gyro, and after touching the steel ball, found that his legs worked again for a brief moment. So he decided to enter the race to follow Gyro and learn more about spin. One of the most crazy things about Johnny's time in the race is of course that he's paraplegic, and managed to ride across the country without the use of his legs. His horse, Slow Dancer, named after a Boz Scaggs song, is also notable for being quite old and having a reputation for being untamable. But Johnny is able to manage this anyway and enters the race. Johnny shows that he still has talent for racing as he comes in 5th place in the first stage, earning 30 points. During the second stage, he enters the Devil's Palm where he acquires the left arm of the Saint's corpse, granting him the Standability Tusk, named after a song by Fleetwood Mac. This allows him to shoot his fingernails as spin-powered bullets, which he uses to his advantage throughout the rest of the race. Johnny continued a good track record by getting 2nd place in both the 2nd and 3rd stages, earning 50 points each. On the 4th stage, Johnny came in 4th place, earning 35 points. During the 5th stage, Johnny also came to a greater understanding of spin during his battle with Sandman and evolved his stand to Tusk Act 2. He went on to get 5th place and 30 more points. On the 6th stage, Johnny came in 2nd behind Gyro and got another 50 points. During the 7th stage, Johnny and Gyro fought against Axl Rowe, where Johnny once again evolved his stand to Act 3. They lagged behind, however, and Johnny came in 7th place in that stage for 20 points. During the 8th stage in the battle with Valentine, Johnny reached mastery of spin using the power of his horse and attained Tusk Act 4. Due to mastering spin, Johnny's legs returned to normal and he could walk again. Soon after, Johnny also encountered the alternate universe Diego that had been brought to the base world by Valentine, who continued to race in Diego's place. He then got 5th place in that stage for 30 points. Moving on to the final stage, Johnny starts the race 5th. This is when Johnny's final battle against the alternate Diego takes place. However, Johnny is not able to get around the world's time-stopping ability, and Diego is able to hit Johnny with his own infinite spin, trapping him on the ground. Although he is saved from death by Steven Steele, Johnny is unable to complete the race and is disqualified. So of course this is one of the biggest shocks of the story, where our main character doesn't actually win the race or even complete it. As it stood, Johnny had a total of 295 points, giving him the 4th most number of points at the time of him dropping out. Johnny did have a real chance at winning the race. He had an exceptionally good performance throughout with a lot of high places. And not only that, he managed to accumulate a ton of points without ever getting first in any stage. But with the way the final battle played out, him winning was simply not going to happen. At the end of the day, Johnny found fulfillment throughout the journey and with his time with Gyro, and he's seen to move on with no regrets. Now we move on to the finalists, the characters who actually managed to complete the race. With 6 racers retired by the final stage, that left 39 people out of the original 3,852 who crossed the finish line. Surprisingly, most of these final 6 are characters without much screen time at all. Before that though, I want to talk about the cash prize for the race and how I'll be calculating it. It was said that the final stage comes with a bonus prize. Whoever comes in first at the end is said to receive an additional 1 billion yen. There's actually a bit of uncertainty with the amounts of cash prizes for the race. In the first chapter, the cash prizes go as follows. First place overall gets $50 million, second place gets $1 million, third place $500,000, fourth place $250,000, and fifth place $120,000. Notice that everything here is presented in dollars. Now obviously these numbers make no sense for the time period of the story. According to a tailpiece for the chapter, we can't be certain how much money was worth back then, so modern valuation is being used for simplicity. However, when you get to the final stage, everything starts being written in yen. For example, the $50 million is now shown as 6 billion yen. This is more or less a correct conversion of the value based on the exchange written back in that Chapter 1 tailpiece. However, the same is not true for the other prizes, which take a huge hit. For example, the $120,000 prize is just converted to 120,000 yen, making it only worth about $1,000. This makes even less sense when we remember that the first place bonus for the earlier stages is $10,000. That 10K was originally presented in the context of everything else being dollars and it being smaller than the top 5 prizes. But now, since this remains as dollars and the others don't, it still retains its value. So for consistency, I'm going to stick to the dollar amounts as they were presented in the first chapter and not the deflated prizes. For the final stage's 1 billion yen, I'll be going with a valuation of about 8,333,333 to match with the other prizes. The first finalist here is Nellyville from America. He and his horse Country Grammar are both named after albums from the rapper Nelly. While Nellyville does appear in the manga, we never see him up close and his design is fairly generic. In the first stage, he ranked 15th for 7 points. In the second stage, he got 12th for 10 points. In the third and fourth stages, he got 13th for 9 points each. In the 5th stage, he got 11th for 11 points. In the 6th and 7th stages, he scored 9th for 13 points each. In the 8th stage, he placed 7th for 20 points. Lastly, for the final stage, he came in 6th place before being raised to 5th and receiving 30 points. While he placed high in the final results, Nellyville's actual performance is not that great. He scored pretty low throughout and his final points only come up to 122. While that still got him 5th overall in the 5th place prize of $120,000, his placement is heavily influenced by racers much better than him dying or dropping out ahead of time. For example, Johnny, Gyro, Sandman, and Hot Pants all had much higher point counts than him before even finishing all the stages, and any one of them making it to the end would have very likely knocked him out of the ranking. Now we go to Georgie Porgy from France. He's named after a song by Toto. For the first stage, Georgie doesn't even place and scores 0 points. On the second stage, he places 20th and gets 2 points. On the third stage, he gets 11th and 11 points. On the fourth stage, he's placed 12th and gets 10 points. On the fifth stage, he's down at 17th for 5 points. In the sixth, he does get a bit better with 7th place for 20 points. And the 7th stage and 8th for 15 points. In the 8th stage, he places 6th for 25 points, and in the final stage, he places 5th before being raised to 4th for 35 points. Once again, not a particularly good performance, and he didn't even place at all in the first stage. Overall, he only ended up with 123 points, only 1 point above Nellyville, making him 4th overall and getting the 4th place prize of $250,000. Like Nellyville, Georgie Porgy is completely carried just by the fact that he didn't die or drop out. And without doing all that well throughout the race, he takes home a huge prize. Really the point I'm trying to hammer home here is that Nellyville and Georgie Porgy are total frauds. Next is another racer with very little screen time but a surprisingly great track record. This is Sloop John B from America. He and his horse Catch a Wave are named after songs by the Beach Boys. Sloop John B never has any dialogue throughout the part, but we do get a few close-ups of him and he does have a unique design. He came in 20th place in the first stage for 2 points, so not off to a good start, but he improved with 10th place in the second stage for 12 points. In the third stage, he actually didn't place at all and got no points. In the fourth stage, he got 8th place for 15 points. In the 5th and 6th stages, he got 6th place for 25 points each. Then in the 7th stage, he got 4th place for 35 points, and in a shocker, he got 1st place in the 8th stage, getting 100 points, $10,000, and a time bonus. Even with the time bonuses applied, Sloop John B still kept the first spot for the stage. He was the first racer to start in the final stage and cross the finish line in 2nd place, later being moved up to 1st, claiming the huge 1st place bonus prize of $8.3 million. Sloop John B ranked 3rd overall in points with a whopping 314, nearly 200 points ahead of the racer under him. For being ranked 3rd overall, he also received another $500,000, making his total winnings, including his 10K bonus, approximately $8,843,333, the second largest cash prize of the entire race. Although he started rough, Sloop John B proved to be a great racer and built up a huge amount of points and has the exclusive honor of taking the 1st place bonus for the final stage. Now we move on to another racer, but this time one with a bit more screen time. This is Norisuke Higashikata from Japan. He's of course based on the Higashikata family from Part 4. His horse is Hono, which means flame in Japanese. Norisuke is partly well known for his strange birth defect where he is born with 2 navels, a fact that he shows off to practically everyone he meets. His performance starts off as not very remarkable, with getting 19th place in the first stage, earning 3 points. In the second stage, however, he placed 6th for 25 points. In the third stage, he got 12th for 10 points. However, shockingly, in the fourth stage, Norisuke actually comes in first place for 100 points, $10,000, and the time bonus. He follows this up with getting second place in the fifth stage for another 50 points. Part of why this is so impressive is that moments before, Norisuke had been stabbed by Sandman and went unconscious before being healed by Hot Pants. So despite having to be healed and Hot Pants having a head start, he still managed to get ahead of her and nearly everyone else to get second place. In the sixth stage, he got 4th for 35 points, and in the seventh stage, he got second once again for 50 points. On the 8th stage, he actually comes in second once again, but with the time bonuses applied, he has moved down to 3rd place for 40 points. For the final stage, he started 3rd and managed to cross the finish line in 4th place. After the race, he was moved up to 3rd, giving him 40 points. Now, unlike some of his other finalists, Norisuke is a fantastic racer and completely deserving of his spot. Not only did he come first in one of the stages, he also got second place in 3 different stages, only being moved down into 8th stage because of the time bonuses. And his great performance shows, since despite coming 3rd in the final stage, he actually has the second highest point count overall. By coming in second, Norisuke received the second place prize of $1 million, with his total winnings being $1,010,000, the 3rd largest prize from the race. As we would learn in Part 8, Norisuke used this money to open up a fruit selling company based around his family. For our next racer, we come to our last major character for the video, Diego Brando from Britain. Diego is based on Dio Brando from the original universe of JoJo. His horse is Silver Bullet based on the Silver Bullet Band. He is hailed as a genius jockey, and in sheer horse riding skill, he may be the greatest in all the race. He is able to analyze all aspects of a person's riding to determine the minute weaknesses of their horse and find the perfect moment to overtake them. He also uses advanced techniques like slipstreaming or riding close behind other riders to reduce drag. Diego chose to enter the race to feed his ambition. As a child in poverty, his mother was mistreated by the people around them and she eventually passed away. Diego swore revenge by aiming to rise to the top of society. Before the race, Diego was named as one of the racers expected to win. During the first stage, he was one of the first racers to jump ahead of the group after Gyro and managed to overtake him before Gyro caused him to take a detour. Despite this, Diego still caught up once again for the final stretch of the stage. In the first stage, he initially placed 3rd, being moved up to 2nd after Gyro's penalty and receiving 50 points. In the second stage, he once again went head-to-head with Gyro and Johnny and managed to pull ahead right at the end to take first place, $10,000 and a time bonus. During the third stage, Diego met Johnny and Gyro again in the Rocky Mountains, where he came under the effects of the stand Scary Monsters. By obtaining the left eye of the corpse, Diego took the stand ability for himself. With this ability, he can turn himself and others into dinosaurs. This greatly improves his natural senses and made his racing even more efficient. At the end of the stage, he was competing with Johnny and Gyro once again, and crossed the finish line just behind Johnny. They learned that Hot Pants had already taken first place an hour earlier, giving Diego 3rd place and 40 points. During the fourth stage, Diego attacked Johnny and Gyro, but was beaten and temporarily knocked out of the race. Diego crossed the fourth stage extremely late in 54th place, receiving no points. During the fifth stage, he began working for Valentine and combined his ability with Sandman's to kill Han and attack Johnny and Gyro. During this time, Diego remained far behind the group to let his horse recover and earned 0 points for the fifth stage. By the sixth stage, Diego began to improve and placed 20th for 2 points. In the seventh stage, Diego finally made a full comeback, taking advantage of Johnny and Gyro lagging behind and taking first place for another 100 points. During the 8th stage, Diego became involved with the battle against Valentine, first losing the eye to him and then teaming up with Hot Pants to attack him. At the end of the battle, Diego believed that he had killed Valentine but was sliced in half by the train and died. Before Valentine's death at Johnny's hands, Diego was replaced with another version of himself from a parallel universe. This version of Diego had access to the time-stopping stand of the world and continued the race in Diego's place to deliver the corpse. This Diego went on to take 4th place in the 8th stage, which was changed to 2nd place with Diego's 2 time bonuses, earning 50 points. During the final stage, Diego started 4th right ahead of Johnny. After a battle with him through the streets of Manhattan, Diego incapacitated Johnny by hitting him with his own spin. Diego went on to cross the finish line first, taking the grand prize. Diego's final score is a staggering 442 points, the highest out of any single racer. His total winnings, including his 2 bonuses, taking first place in the final stage as well as the grand prize for highest overall score, comes to around $58,353,333, the highest prize that would have ever been given out in the race. Of course, with the alternate Diego's death shortly after, he was ultimately disqualified, but it cannot be understated just how cleanly Diego had won. Diego is the only participant in the entire race to get first place in 2 stages before the finale, and the only person to have 2 time bonuses. If we include the finale, then Diego is also the only racer to have 3 first place runs. Not only that, but Diego recovered from a gigantic loss that sent him 2 days behind the other competitors. Not only was he able to get back onto the ranking, he managed to bounce back to getting first place in the 7th stage. Most of the work was definitely put in by the original Diego. He maintained the highest overall points for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stages, and had the 2nd highest overall at the time of his death. The alternate Diego is also very strong, and his ability to stop time gives him a great advantage. Overall, I think I can easily say that Diego is the single best racer in the competition. But there is still one more racer to talk about. Our final racer is Poco Loco from America. His name seems to be based on the character Poco from Part 1, who is based on the band of the same name. Poco Loco lived working as a farmer in Georgia. Before the race, he encountered a fortune teller who said that his luck would be at its peak during the next 2 months of his life. As it turns out, Poco Loco was born as someone unnaturally lucky. His luck is so strong that it actually caused him to manifest the stand without him ever having entered a Devil's Palm. His stand Hey Ya is named after a song by Outkast and is also the name of his horse. Hey Ya doesn't actually make Poco Loco lucky since the luck is inherent to him. Instead, the stand just gives Poco Loco good advice as he races. During the first stage, Poco Loco accidentally sleeps in, missing the first minutes of the race. However, this turns out to be lucky for him, since the thousands of horses turn the ground extremely soft, giving him an easy ride. After catching up to the main group, he starts to encounter more and more lucky events. He's able to take otherwise impossible shortcuts, like miraculously jumping over a ravine and running through the forest with his eyes closed. Even falling off his horse turns out to be lucky as it allows him to fit through smaller areas and get ahead. Gyro noted that Poco Loco seems to be following a flow of luck, meaning he follows the perfect movements that allow things to just naturally play out for him. This is very similar to the awakening Gyro has later on by recognizing the path of light shown to him by Ringo. In the first stage, Poco Loco finishes in 4th, and after Gyro's penalty is moved up to 3rd for 40 points. In the second stage, he placed 9th for 13 points. On the 3rd stage, he got 5th for 30 points. On the 4th stage, with Johnny and Gyro having fallen behind, he took 2nd place behind Norsuke for 50 points. Then in the 5th stage, Poco Loco came first, earning 100 points, $10,000, and a time bonus. In the 6th stage, he came close to beating Johnny and Gyro again, but fell short to 3rd place for 40 points. In the 7th stage, he got 3rd again for another 40. In the 8th stage, Poco Loco finished 3rd, and after the time bonuses were applied, he went down to 4th for 35 points. Lastly, in the final stage, Poco Loco crossed the finish line in 3rd place. However, after Diego's death and disqualification, Poco Loco was moved up to 2nd place in the final stage, earning 50 points, giving him the highest overall points of 398, making him the winner of the Steel Ball Run race. He received $50 million for winning, as well as the additional $10,000 from the 5th stage, giving him the highest cash prize of the race. Poco Loco is a great racer. He had a consistently strong performance throughout the race and appears somewhere in the top 3 in most of the stages. Having the 2nd highest points behind Diego is a real accomplishment, so I think Poco Loco's win here is totally justified. And that's every racer in the Steel Ball Run. Part 7 is one of my favorite parts of JoJo, but I had never really taken a deep look at the race before. I'm glad I did since I actually learned a lot. When you first read Part 7, you don't really keep track of all the numbers in the background. Actually going through it makes me appreciate the story even more, and certain characters have whole sides to them that you didn't really think about before. This also helped me get a look at a ton of the side characters that otherwise have no impact on the story. I'm hoping when the anime rolls around we get to see more of the side characters and that some of them get unique designs and dialogue. Let me know if you learned anything new, and most of all, who your favorite racers are after having watched this video. Also, let me know what other videos like this you'd like to see me do. If you want to keep up with future videos, make sure to subscribe and click the bell. You can also join the Hum and Beat Discord to get notified on new uploads and any important JoJo news. Finally, I'd appreciate it if you help support the channel on Patreon. There you can receive Discord perks and submit patron questions. This video's question comes from Chongo. They ask, although I've made my thoughts on the Shueisha color pages clear, what are my thoughts on the orange bichrome pages? For those that don't already know, there's 3 different kinds of pages when you're looking at the original manga. There's the normal black and white pages, the full color pages, and the orange bichrome pages. These show up every once in a while to add some color to certain moments. Obviously they aren't as good as a full color page, but I think they're pretty nice looking. Most importantly, as this question points out, it's made by Araki during the drawing process, so it doesn't interfere with the artwork in any way. Compare that to the Shueisha color scans, which often make some poor color choices or just mistakes that make parts of the manga very off-putting, especially when they have to apply those colors on top of existing Araki colors for some very bad results. So I do enjoy the bichrome pages, although they haven't been done since the end of Part 5. If you want to submit a question, you can join the Patreon at any tier and submit them in the community chat or over DMs. I try to answer one question per video, so if you join, feel free to submit as many as you want. Thank you for watching. This is the part of the video where I thank my $5 and up patrons. Thank you to Sloth Dog, Doorbell, Crayon, Rigovids, Zucato, Pumpkin Doge, Marrow, Almighty Quarth, Gatling Grove, Lime Jinjo, Sponge Cake, Cakext, Feliciano Rabaja, Rayana Meme, Christian McDonough, Emmanuel Etienne, Pulse Dog, Carmotrina, Zach Greenfield, FIFO, Rob Goliath, Jacob Smith, Big T, C Manga, Minty, Gold, Red Hot Mayonnaise, Jolene, Monticelli, Zenkai, Royal Slush, Chongo, Keenan, Perry15, and Noland.